You didn't arrive here by accident. Something inside you is waking up. Something you've been running from. Something you've buried under routines and distractions and the noise of a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore. You're here because a part of you, the part you've been afraid to meet, is knocking from the inside. And it won't stop. Not anymore. Kierkegaard called it despair. Not the kind you cry about. The kind you live with. The kind that hides in your smile, in your productivity, in your perfectly constructed explanations for why everything is fine. It's the despair of being someone you're not. Of living a life that looks right but feels hollow. And the terrible thing, the thing Kierkegaard understood so deeply it broke him open, is that most people never feel it. They never wake up. They die in their sleep, wrapped in comfort and distraction, never once meeting who they actually are. But you're feeling it now. That restlessness, that ache, that sense that something is wrong even when nothing is technically broken. That's not a crisis. That's an invitation. Your true self is returning. And it's bringing everything you've avoided with it. Kierkegaard spent his entire life circling this one terrifying truth. To become yourself, you must first see how thoroughly you've abandoned yourself. He wrote about the sickness unto death, the agony of being a self that refuses to be itself. The despair of wearing a mask so long you forget there's a face underneath. He knew that most of us would rather live as strangers to ourselves than face the pain of honest self-confrontation. Because becoming yourself isn't peaceful. It's not a gentle unfolding. It's a dismantling. It's standing in front of a mirror you've avoided for years and finally letting yourself see. There's a specific kind of suffering that comes with waking up. You start noticing the distance between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. The words you say that don't match what you feel. The relationships you maintain out of habit, not love. The work you do because it's safe, not because it's true. You start seeing all the ways you've shaped yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. And it hurts. God, it hurts. Because you can't unsee it. Once you feel the gap, you can't go back to pretending it isn't there. Kierkegaard understood this. He lived it. He broke off his engagement to the woman he loved because he knew he couldn't be the man she needed him to be and still be himself. He chose loneliness over pretense. He chose the anguish of freedom over the comfort of a scripted life. And he spent the rest of his days trying to explain why that choice, that terrible, lonely, liberating choice, was the only honest thing he could do. You've been living in what Kierkegaard would call aesthetic existence. A life of distractions, of chasing feelings, of avoiding the deeper questions by staying busy, staying entertained, staying numb. You scroll. You binge. You plan trips and buy things and fill your calendar because silence terrifies you. Because in silence you might hear the truth. You might feel the weight of your own existence. You might realize that you've been running from yourself for so long you don't even know what you're running toward anymore. And then something breaks. A loss. A failure. A moment of unexpected stillness. Suddenly the distractions don't work. The noise doesn't drown it out. You're alone with yourself and it's unbearable. This is what Kierkegaard called the moment of existential crisis. But he didn't mean it as a tragedy. He meant it as a doorway. The only doorway. Because you can't become yourself until you've seen how lost you are. Here's the part no one tells you. The path back to yourself is not about finding something new. It's about remembering something old. Something so deep and so true that you buried it because it was too vulnerable to carry in a world that punishes softness. You were a child once and you knew who you were. You knew what you loved. You knew what made you come alive. And then the world told you that wasn't enough. That you needed to be practical, acceptable, normal. So you buried that child. You locked them away. And you built a life on top of their grave. Your true self is returning because it never left. It's been waiting. Patiently. Quietly. In the spaces between your thoughts. In the dreams you have but don't remember. In the moments when you're driving alone and a song comes on and suddenly you're crying for no reason you can name. That's not weakness. That's your soul trying to reach you. That's the self you abandoned trying to come home. But here's the weight of it. Coming home to yourself means leaving behind the person you've been performing. It means disappointing people. It means letting go of relationships that only worked because you weren't fully present in them. It means walking away from jobs, cities, identities that looked good on paper but felt like prisons. Kierkegaard called this the leap of faith. Not faith in God necessarily. Faith in yourself. Faith that the truth of who you are is worth the loss of who you've been pretending to be. There's a story Kierkegaard tells, not directly but woven through his work. A man stands at the edge of his own life. He sees two paths. One is familiar. Safe. It's the life he's already living. The life everyone expects. The life that makes sense. The other path is dark. Uncertain. It requires him to let go of everything he's built and trust that something true is waiting on the other side. Most people, Kierkegaard says, choose the first path. They choose safety over selfhood. And they spend the rest of their lives haunted by the ghost of who they could have been. You're at that edge right now. You might not see it that way, but you feel it. The ground beneath you is shifting. The story you've been telling yourself about your life is starting to crack. And you have a choice. You can patch the cracks. You can double down on the performance. You can work harder, stay busier, convince yourself that the restlessness will pass if you just push through it. Or you can stop. You can turn around. You can look at what's breaking and ask yourself, what if this is supposed to break? What if the only way forward is through the ruins of who I've been? This is the darkest part. The part where you realize that no one can do this for you. No therapist, no book, no video, no love can make this easier. Kierkegaard was brutal about this. He said that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. That the moment you realize you are free to choose who you become, you also realize how terrifying that is. Because it means you're responsible. It means you can't blame your parents, your circumstances, your past. It means that if you stay in a life that's killing you, you're choosing it. And that's unbearable. But it's also the only thing that makes change possible. Your true self is not some idealized, perfect version of you. It's not the person you'll become when you finally lose the weight or get the promotion or find the right partner. Your true self is the one who's here right now, under all the fear and the shame and the pretending, is the part of you that still knows what you love. That still feels the pull towards certain people, certain places, certain ways of being in the world. It's the part of you that feels wrong when you lie, even small lies. The part that aches when you betray your own values for the sake of convenience. Kierkegaard said that purity of heart is to will one thing: to stop being fragmented, to stop living in contradiction with yourself, to align what you feel with what you say, what you believe with what you do, who you are in private with who you are in public. That doesn't mean perfection. It means honesty. It means integrity. It means letting yourself be seen even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Think about the moments when you feel most alive. They're rarely the moments of achievement or recognition. They're the quiet moments. The honest moments. The moments when you let yourself be vulnerable with someone and they didn't turn away. The moments when you chose truth over comfort. The moments when you said what you actually felt instead of what you thought you should say. Those moments are glimpses of your true self. And they terrify you because they remind you how much of your life you spend hiding. Kierkegaard wrote about the knight of faith, someone who lives fully in the world but remains anchored to their deepest truth. Someone who doesn't escape into religion or philosophy or distraction, but who stands in the tension of existence and accepts it. This knight doesn't have certainty. They have commitment. They don't know if they're doing the right thing. They just know they're doing their thing. And that's enough. You've been waiting for permission. For someone to tell you it's okay to stop performing. For the right moment. for proof that you won't regret it. But that moment never comes. There's no guarantee. There's no safety net. There's only this, the unbearable weight of continuing to live as someone you're not, or the terrifying freedom of stepping into who you actually are. And here's what makes it so hard. The world will not reward you for this. Your true self might not be marketable, might not be impressive. It might not fit the narrative people have constructed about who you're supposed to be. Your family might not understand. Your friends might drift away. The career you built might not accommodate the person you're becoming. Kierkegaard knew this. He was mocked in his lifetime, misunderstood, alone. But he chose authenticity anyway, because the alternative, the slow death of self-betrayal, was worse. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with this journey. You start to see how many of your relationships were built on mutual performance. How many conversations were just scripts. How many connections were maintained because they were convenient, not because they were true. And when you stop performing, some of those relationships dissolve. Not because anyone did anything wrong, but because they were never built to hold the weight of your actual self. This loss is necessary. Painful but necessary. Because you can't become whole while still fragmenting yourself to fit into spaces that require your absence. You can't be yourself while still contorting to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. The people who are meant to stay will stay. The ones who can't hold space for your truth will fall away. And that's not abandonment. That's honesty. Kierkegaard also spoke about repetition. The idea that true selfhood isn't about constant change or reinvention, but about coming back to who you've always been. It's about stripping away the layers of conditioning and expectation until you find the core that never changed. That child you buried? They're still there. Still knowing. Still feeling. Still waiting for you to remember. You don't need to become someone new. You need to unbecome everything that isn't you. Every role you adopted to survive. Every mask you wore to belong. Every version of yourself you constructed to avoid rejection. All of it needs to go. Not because it was bad or wrong, but because it's not yours. And carrying what isn't yours will break you eventually. Here's the strange grace in all of this. The moment you stop pretending, the world changes. Not because the world is different, but because you are. You start attracting different people. You start noticing different possibilities. You start building a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to participate in it. It's not easier. It's harder. But it's yours. And that makes all the difference. There's no blueprint for this. Kierkegaard didn't offer one. He couldn't. Because your path back to yourself is yours alone. It's subjective. It's intimate. It's something you have to feel your way through. But he did say this: the self is a relation that relates itself to itself. Which means you can't find yourself by looking outside. You can't find yourself in someone else's approval or in the achievement of some external goal. You find yourself by turning inward, by sitting with the discomfort, by asking the hard questions and not flinching when the answers scare you. What are you afraid of? Not the surface fears. The deep ones. The ones you don't say out loud. Are you afraid that if people see who you really are, they'll leave? Are you afraid that your true self isn't enough? That it's too much? That it's too soft, too intense, too broken, too different? Those fears are the gatekeepers. And the only way through is to face them directly. To let them speak. To hear what they have to say. And then to choose yourself anyway. Kierkegaard believed that the opposite of sin isn't virtue, it's faith. And by faith he didn't mean blind belief. He meant the courage to be yourself in the face of everything that tells you not to. The courage to stand in your truth even when it's unpopular. Even when it's lonely. Even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. You're seeing this because your true self is returning. It's not gentle. It's not convenient. It might disrupt everything, but it's the only thing that will set you free. not free from pain, free from the suffocating weight of living a life that isn't yours, free from the exhaustion of performing, free to be broken and honest and beautifully, terrifyingly human. So what now? You sit with it. You let it hurt. You stop running. You stop numbing. You let yourself feel the full weight of the distance between who you are and who you've been. And then, slowly, with more courage than you think you have, you start making small, honest choices. You start saying no to things that require you to betray yourself. You start saying yes to things that feel true even when they're terrifying. You start showing up as yourself, even when yourself is messy and uncertain and far from perfect. This is the path, not toward happiness, toward wholeness, toward a life where you recognize yourself when you look in the mirror, where you can lie down at night and know that whatever else happened that day, you didn't abandon yourself. You stayed. You showed up. You were honest. It won't happen all at once. There will be days when you slip back into old patterns. Days when the performance feels easier than the truth. Days when you doubt everything and wonder if you're making a terrible mistake. That's part of it. That's the dizziness of freedom Kierkegaard warned about. But each time you choose yourself, each time you speak your truth, set a boundary, walk away from what diminishes you, you get stronger. Not invulnerable, just more yourself. And one day, maybe years from now, you'll look back and realize you don't recognize the person you used to be. Not because you changed into someone else, but because you finally became who you always were. The performance will feel like a distant memory, a costume you wore in another lifetime. And you'll understand what Kierkegaard meant when he said that to dare is to lose one's footing momentarily, but not to dare is to lose oneself. Your true self is returning. Let it. Welcome it. Even if it scares you. Even if it costs you. Even if the world doesn't understand. Because at the end of your life, the only thing that will matter is whether you had the courage to be who you actually were. Let it return.